There's this under the radar team in the WNBA called the Indiana Fever. We're going to talk with Tony East, who was there live for Media Day, probably by himself, I assume. But let's get him some publicity. Locked On Women's Basketball starts now.
You are Locked On Women's Basketball, your daily podcast on women's basketball. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hi, everyone, and happy Wednesday. I am your host, Howard Megdal, welcoming you to Locked On Women's Basketball. Thank you for making us your first listen every day. You guys keep showing up for us. I just did the numbers. We were over 340,000 listeners in March alone, showing up for us the way we show up for you 6 days a week. It is, of course, not just me. There is incredible talent across the board over at the Next. I always like when I can do it and I can point to the talent, and including the great Tony East, who covers the Fever for us. But go ahead and subscribe at thenexthoops.com. You sign up. It's $9 a month, $72 a year, and you get all of these stories direct to your inbox, all of the podcasts direct to your inbox. It is a great newsletter that helps promote the product. Thenexthoops.com. And today was Indiana Fever Media Day. Tony East, we're going to talk about a lot to get into it. I think the place we have to start is with not just Caitlin Clark, who is a guard for the Indiana Fever, for those of you who have been, I don't know, in a coma for the last couple of years, but Caitlin didn't exactly set the expectations low now, did she?
Au contraire. I did laugh at you saying I was there alone. In past years, it was sometimes just me and some other people. I'm thrilled with how many people cover the Indiana Fever now. We get all sorts of angles and questions, including people asking Caitlin about the team's discussions of their internal expectations. The veterans who have had these kind of conversations before on various teams said, yeah, we had our internal meeting. We talked about our high expectations for what we think we can do this year. We think we're a talented team, which is coded for, yeah, we think we're pretty good and can do a lot of damage. Caitlin made it very clear what her expectations are for the Indiana Fever this year. She thinks they are a championship-level team, title or bust. And I think they have lots of talent, and I think they have a lot of new talent, and they're going to have a lot to figure out. And I think it's good that they have lofty goals, but that is quite the high bar. And I'm not saying that they can't reach it. I think that's quite a high bar for a team that is getting hit with expectations for the first time in 7 or 8 years, more than that, almost 10 years.
So I want to get to, and we will, in segment 2 especially, we're going to talk about a lot of the newcomers and the way in which there's so much that's new to figure out. Segment 3, want to get right to that core question and how good Caitlin and Aliyah are at this point and sort of drill down into it. But I think we have to start here. We have to start at this conversation about what is appropriate in terms of expectations. And so for those who may not know, last year on the show, I said I did not just think they were a playoff team prior to the season, but I thought the Indiana Fever had a chance to win a series. I think you could argue that had they matched up differently, had it not been Connecticut in round 1, I think they were clearly one of the top 4 teams by the end of the year. I think Connecticut was a terrible matchup for them, and they did the good work, Amber Cox did, of going out there and saying, well, let's take their coach and one of their critical players in DeWanna. And so you kind of fixed that. But I don't think it was unreasonable to think that team, I think that team would have beaten Seattle in the playoffs. I think that team would have beaten Phoenix in the playoffs. I think there's a lot of ways in which, listen, I think they would have given Vegas a difficult time in the playoffs as well. So just before we get to like where they are now, do you think that's an unreasonable perspective for me to have about it? And do you agree with it?
No, I had to give you credit, right? We talked before the season. I said, I'm not quite sure they're at the level you were mentioning. I thought they would be in the mix for the 7-8 seed range. I predicted 16 or 17 wins, and they were better than that, certainly. And even that, like saying they went 20-20 is an unfair representation of their season last year. Like ESPN has a graphic about it. Still to this day, it's a whole year later. People are talking about their schedule from the start of last season. Right?
11 and 20 days.
It was
with all the attention.
Usually I'm one of the people who's like, you play 22 home games and 22 road games, like suck it up, go deal with it. But like that, even as a, just like I'm covering the games, I'm like, I'm tired. Like I'm not even playing or traveling. Or like that was so brutal.
Poor Christy Sides, her voice was so I covered
Yeah.
that game in person in New York, game number 11, and they were all just, except for Kelsey Mitchell. Everyone else was dragging. Kelsey Mitchell, I she's got to bottle whatever it is she has in her and gives it to all the rest of us because it's not fair.
With that challenge, and by the way, they're like working in a very ball dominant player, which is not a bad thing. It's very good to do that. It just is a lot to work in, right? Because everybody's doing something totally new. Like Aliyah talked about that today, that part of her slow start last year was playing without Kaylin, and with Kaylin is totally different.
No doubt.
So they start 1-8. After that, they were 19-12, which if you extrapolate that over a 40-win season is like already close to a top 4. And it's not even like a small sample. It's over 30 games. Like they already have showed before Bonner, before Howard, before Cunningham, before Turner, that like they upgraded a lot of spots. They already were pretty good. But yeah, I think it's reasonable for them to think, oh, we got Stephanie White. And by the way, you said a coach and a player. How about 2 assistant coaches and a player development coach too? Like, hey, let's just take that
is very true.
Here. Like, it's totally reasonable to think they can go up several tiers.
I am a little bit surprised they didn't sign Blaze in the offseason because, that really would have been sort of the icing on the cake for it. But no, to your point, right? It isn't just because I'm very wary when you say, well, it's just this part of a season and you're sort of slicing and dicing. But that's not really what this is. This is the part of the season that is the entire rest of the season after the crazy, and you wrote about it, it was like a schedule, the kind that no WNBA team has faced since I think it was like the 2003 Mystics in terms of the challenges that you faced. It's all of the most recent sample. It is a sample with a young player who is new coming to the league and dealing with those expectations. I mean, you put all that together and it seems to me like, that as I'm trying to figure out who they are, I know it's data and I know you can't just cherry pick the data, but man, I'm inclined to throw out 2 and 9 and say, all right, the baseline before you get into all that is new is what came next. And when I wrote the book, It's Over My Shoulder, about becoming Caitlin Clark, talking to everyone around the team, they seem to feel the same way about that as well. Do you think in light of that, in light of the fact that New York and Minnesota are bringing back some key pieces, but are, going to have to repeat, they're going to have the same level of health that they had. New York already is not having that with Benai Laney, missing, 5 to 6 months has been the estimate. Las Vegas is going to have to incorporate Jewel Lloyd and play without Kelsey Plum. It just feels like what they're bringing back. What's the argument for them to not be a top 4 team?
Yeah, it's kind of what I would think the discussion is not what would not make them a top 4 team. It's like, is there another demarcation above them in that group? Because I agree that it's, obviously the Liberty and the Lynx, the finals last year. And then the Aces and the Fever and maybe Phoenix. I don't know how you feel about Phoenix. They are very good at the top. Their 8th and 9th players are, who knows? We'll see.
I don't know how that fits yet. And that we'll talk about the Mercury a lot here, but yeah.
Regardless, if you love their top end talent, okay, that's probably the best 5 teams. I think most people would say, or at least like on paper coming in.
I think Atlanta may have a say in it.
Atlanta might have a say. Seattle, if things click, could look.
They could
pretty solid, right? But yeah, if you want to say the top 4 of the first 4 teams I said, yes, the Fever probably would be in that group and mix to be hosting a series, which one they'll feel good about because they were not thrilled to not have the home game last year. But 2, of course, like they'll have a legitimate talent and home court advantage.
I did read somewhere that all their games are home games. Is that did I read that on a shirt? Where did I read that?
It's honest. It's not true, but it's not
it's
true.
It's somewhere in between not true and not true.
Like I think the argument that I would hear is like I think it's probably like tier 1, the teams in the finals last year, line Fever Aces. But if you don't agree with that, I think that's fine. Like they're pretty dang good, and they got a lot of good fitting pieces, right? It wasn't just like, oh, let's get really good players with our new thing. It like clearly they had a type and they were able to get it.
I mean, Amber Cox has been in the WNBA making decisions for a very, very long time.
A
And
lot of
so,
places too.
yeah, and has some ideas here about the way in which this comes together. So I'm excited. Actually, we're going to get to break in segment 2. We're going to talk about some of those new pieces, the way they come together, and what you heard from them as well here at Media Day. So back with much more from Tony East, who covers the Indiana Fever for the next. I'm Howard Megdal. You're listening to Locked On Women's Basketball. Locked On Women's Basketball is brought to you by Car Gurus. Now, shopping for a car should be exciting, not exhausting. But between the confusing prices and hidden fees, it can feel overwhelming. That's why I love using Car Gurus. They help you cut through the noise and show you the best deals with full confidence. They have over 4 million listings. I mean, if you can't find a car in 4 million listings, what are you even doing? Car Gurus has more new and used cars than any other major online marketplace in the United States. They verify dealers, provide real price analysis, and give you the tools and data you need to make the right choice without second guessing yourself. Again, to me, the best part of this, and I'm old enough to remember when you couldn't do this pre-internet, is instead of you're negotiating with one car dealer, you put all the car dealers against themselves. And now you don't have to do that yourself anymore. Car Gurus will do it for you. So buy or sell your next car today with Car Gurus at cargurus.com. Go to cargurus.com to make sure your big deal is the best deal. That's cargurus.com, cargurus.com. Locked On Women's Basketball is also brought to you by Wayfair. Spring is here, and that means it's home project season. Whether you're refreshing a room or tackling a full renovation, Wayfair is the best kept secret for all things home improvement. From small updates like stylish cabinet hardware to major upgrades like new vanities, sinks, or outdoor lighting, Wayfair has quality products for every budget. Literally, last night, my wife and I are talking about some things we want to do in the summer. Was the first place we went to? Wayfair.com. So Wayfair makes home improvement easy, even brings couples together. Get started now at Wayfair.com. That's Wayfair.com. Wayfair, every style, every home. Back here in segment 2, Howard Megdal, Locked On Women's Basketball, with Tony East, who covers the Indiana Fever for the thenexthoops.com. Check out everything he writes. I do, and not just because I edit the site, but also because it is invaluable. And he was there at Media Day today. He was our eyes and ears and saw, I mean, a lot of new stuff, right? I mean, Freddie Fever's the same. Freddie's the same. But you go beyond Freddie, and what are kind of the biggest new changes for those who are maybe just kind of tuning in to just what the Fever did? I mean, we know the headlines. We know Stephanie White is the head coach. We know DeWanna Bonner's there. Sophie Cunningham's there. Bree Turner's there. But like, how does it all come together? And how weird was it?
Yeah, it's like they had practices before, so we've seen them working through the newness in some ways, but you really feel it when you talk to everybody in a day, because every lead question's like, tell me how you got here. Tell me about the day you got traded here or drafted here, you decided to sign here, right? You're opening up with that a dozen times, right? Caitlin's back, Aliyah's back, Lexi Hall's back, Damiris Dantas is back. I'm missing a player. There's 5 returnees. But it's not very many.
No.
Kelsey Mitchell, Dwight.
Kelsey Mitchell. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Like that's it. Every other player who will don their uniform this year was not on the Fever last year. However they acquired them. Mm-hmm. Yes, Freddie Fever's back. Their coaching staff is brand spanking new. Yeah. Their front office is new. Like everything is new. And that has been a very curious point for me. Is one we just talked about. They have high expectations. Like you got to work out some stuff before everybody even knows how good you're going to be. That was a topic last year, and they didn't have expectations. But 2, on one hand, I can see that being really challenging, right? two new starters for sure, as many as 5 new rotation players is tricky. On the other hand, I can see it being a really nice advantage for Stephanie White that she's not going to have to come in to a roster that has 9 of the same players from last year. Be like, forget everything you know about basketball. We're doing this now. It's like fresh for a lot of everybody. And I think that in some ways is nice, and that there's less of a base to build on. And that can help culturally. I think that word has become a little too overused in sports, like building a culture or resetting a culture. Mm-hmm. But in this specific case, because it's so fresh, I think it actually applies quite a bit.
Maybe especially on the defensive end. And there are kind of 2 points to that, right? One is, clearly there needed to be some significant changes that affected what the team was able to do with the defensive end. But before you even get to that point, the point you make, it really resonates with me because I remember this a couple of years ago. And when the New York Liberty came together as the quote unquote super team, the limitation was, how do you do that in year one? And they made it all the way to the finals, but they didn't win in year one. When Las Vegas came together, they did not win in year one. I was talking to somebody in the league about it, and I was like, even when Elena Deladon joined the Mystics, they didn't win until year 2. And she corrected me, and she's like, no, remember, it was year 3. And it took a while, no matter how great. And peak era Elena Deladon was as good as virtually any player I can ever recall seeing. So it's not the easiest thing for all the talent that there is there. What I do wonder about is, does the fact that one of these players is DeWanna Bonner make enough of a difference? DeWanna Bonner is somebody who has done everything possible. She won the championship. She has, if she starts, and I'm curious actually whether you think she will or not start, she will obviously be very important. If she comes off the bench, she's going to be really important. She's even done that in her career. Old heads remember she's a 3-time Sixth Player of the Year award winner, right?
Young heads too in some cases.
Young heads too in some cases. So, but I don't want to presume. But I mean, we have people on the net staff who were like in kindergarten when DeWanna Bonner won Sixth Player of the Year award. So that's a whole other thing. That's, my own identity crisis. But like, do you think that DB knowing what she knows helps speed up that process, and how big a part does that play in Amber making her such a primary target?
Yeah, huge get, like in every way. I will guess, just from looking at their roster and who they've had run together at the practices we've seen, that you will start. I don't know that though. Like, they're very proud of their versatility with Lexi and Sophie and DB and Natasha Howard. Like, their forward rotation will be a lot of interesting things. Regardless, that's not what you're asking. What makes Bonner so valuable is what you said. She's come off the bench. She started. She's been an all-star. She's been a role player. She's been a defensive monster. She can really score. She was an all-star last year, by the way. This is like, I get people think she's 37 and older, but like, she was good now, right? Today.
No drop off in her game last year, and not even requiring her to play fewer minutes. I went back. I was just like, oh, I guess Steph probably limited her minutes. She was like north of 30 again. She's not normal. She had twins and came back. She's been listed her entire career at 6'4", 142 pounds. She hasn't changed. If you saw her in a game, the spot she gets to on the floor, if you look at her shot charts, were the same in 2010 as they are in 2024. Like, it's amazing.
What's going on at Auburn? How did they do that? What did they do to make this possible?
I would love to know the answer to that. There is something. I say this, and people use the phrase unicorn all the time. This is a unicorn. Yeah. Who has been anywhere like DeWanna Bonner? Who had you even heard coming out of school where you're like, oh, she'll be a DeWanna Bonner type? There's no such thing. There's no DeWanna Bonner type. There's just DeWanna Bonner. It's absurd how amazing she is.
And that singularity is what makes her valuable to the Fever. Like, any player at any walk of their career on the team, rookies, Caitlin, Aliyah, Kelsey's like, would you call Kelsey ascent now? I think ascending's probably past tense for her.
No, I think there's now, her reputation has caught up to the player she has always been. Finally. Yeah, I mean, in part because she's surrounded by people who allow her to be who she is.
Yes, I agree with that. Yeah. Ascending wing, Lexi Hall, like lots of different walking time of your career players who she can provide different wisdom to all of them from experience. Not like I saw this player do this thing, or I heard this from this vet that I had. Like I actually did this myself on
That's
good
true.
teams too. And that, I asked if that was intentional, even though I assumed it was the answer. And like, they won it. All of their additions have played or won a finals, right? Sydney Colson, Sophie Cunningham, Brianna Turner, DB, Natasha Howard, like clearly an intentional thing. And Bonner, obviously, many championships like that. That's going to matter so much, and just the dissemination of information. And like, I remember a couple years ago when the Fever had like 8 rookies in camp, someone said, "Oh, this is exciting because someone will ask something, and other rookie, be like, I didn't even think about that. I'm glad they asked that." Like, it's almost like the opposite, where like she'll say DeWanna Bonner will say something to another player, and someone will be like, "I never even thought of that. This is great information to have." Like, it's just going to be invaluable to the Fever, both because they're not at a crossroads and like every team's at a crossroads roster building wise because of the CBA right now, but also because they're finally reaching like franchise standards and expectations for the first time since Catch.
And I heard somebody believes it's championship or bust on that team as well. So don't forget that. I will just ask, obviously championship aspirations, and this is the exact opposite of 8 rookies. What record did that team with 8 rookies finish with?
5 wins and 31 losses.
Yeah. So the opposite of that is probably, somewhere approaching what Caitlin Clark says the Indiana Fever ought to get to. But quite frankly, I just think anyone paying attention. I don't think, to that earlier point, there's an argument that if they fall anywhere, to me, and ultimately they don't care what my expectations are for them. But for me, if they reach the finals and they lose in the finals, that's
great
an
season.
ultra successful season.
Yes.
That's an ultra successful season.
5-31 was not long ago, and like everybody was miserable.
Right.
They would do it again, though. They got Aliyah and Caitlin. Like,
no doubt. No. Lynn
but yeah, any playoff
Lynn
success at all, I think would just be like a lot of the holdovers who still are here, just like deep breath, like finally. Finally. Yeah.
You're right. Wait, we got to get to a break. I want to get back to the other side to talk about that core, because I think there's questions not just for 2025, but beyond. So more with Tony East. I'm Howard Megdal. You're listening to Locked On Women's Basketball. But first, Locked On Women's Basketball is brought to you by Game Time. And there's nothing like the atmosphere of a playoff game. The NBA, and this is fascinating, right? There's a National Basketball Association team right in town in Indiana, the same place that the Fever play, right, Tony? Is that correct?
It is correct.
Okay, they're called the Pacers. Do I have that right?
Yes, that is correct. Also,
are they good at basketball? Are they doing okay?
They are doing what the Fever hope to do and winning a playoff round.
Okay, because I'm in Philadelphia, so I went to see the National Basketball Association team, thinking, oh, that must be great. They're professionals, even though they're men, and it wasn't a great time for anyone. So, but Game Time is here to help you for the teams who are still playing. Every bucket, every defensive stop, you can see it with Game Time without the stress of last-minute ticket hunting. Game Time makes it fast and easy to get playoff tickets, even when demand is sky high. Prices on the app actually go down as tip-off gets closer, and their last-minute deals can save you up to 60%. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. The Pacers. All right, I'll have to check them out. Back here with Tony East talking about the Indiana Fever, the older sister league, the WNBA. Talking, I guess not by age, but by order of importance here on Locked On Women's Basketball. We'll put it that way. But no, truly, check out Tony's Locked On Pacers, because he does such a good job with it. And listen, I could go on all day. You do such a great job with everything. And that is why I'm glad you're here to answer this question. End of the day, there's this core, right? But you're right, and you mentioned it. Because of the CBA, nobody is signed long-term other than effectively post 2025, the rookies who came in 2024, the rookies who came this year, any rookies who got extended from 2023 and that fourth year option was picked up, and randomly Kalani and Lexi Brown. And that's it in the entire league. And that sounds like I'm overstating it, but that is literally how the because this new CBA is coming and everyone's ready for yesterday's price and not today's price. And so I say all that to say, isn't the biggest thing we're going to learn how good Aliyah Boston and Caitlin Clark are together? And isn't everything else kind of commentary?
Yeah, I mean, like, look, they'll have restricted rights on some of these players that they might like to have back. Certainly, like Lexi Hall was very good for them last year. Sophie Cunningham, I believe, could be restricted as well. Like, that's all great. These could be awesome players. But yes, those are the two, right? And I mean, how many times have I heard the stat? Have you heard the stat? As soon as they won the second lottery for Caitlin, every team that's gotten the first pick two years in a row has won a championship or something. Like, and that's true. But they say it because it's true, and it's exciting for the Fever that they would follow the Super Lauren Jackson path or the Aces path or whatever era you want.
Jewel and Stewie.
Yeah, like a million of them, right? Like it's I should have said both Storm eras. Yeah, so it's like that's obviously very exciting. And they have both been all-stars, albeit there's only 3 all-star appearances total, but every year of their careers. Like, they're very good now. This is not a future project. But I do think what Aliyah said today is important of like, okay, I had to figure out how to play with her last year, and Aliyah didn't start the season well, but also Caitlin had a lot of turnovers, and like it took her a minute to figure out what was different about the W game, and then she was awesome once she figured it out. So I think they know they're both good and fit together, but now they have so much versatility on this team that not only are they figuring out those two's like potential peak together, they're figuring out what is the absolute best type of players in between them. Do we have them now? Right. Do we need to get them in a different way? What does that look like? Because they'll have to figure out, do we court Kelsey Mitchell again? She's very good, but also we can only probably do that one more time before we have to court Aliyah, before we have to court Caitlin. Like, that's, you know how this goes. The dance is endless with this kind of stuff. Like, can they afford it?
Who even knows whether there'll be a core in the new deal? True. Yeah. I mean, it's fascinating. It's so much unknown.
Maybe they keep a rookie whose contract goes beyond this year, but like they might literally go, we talk about blank slate versus, building something new or keeping what wasn't new. Like, it could be nothing. Those two players had nothing. Like, maybe they have Michaela Timpson. That's it. Like, it's just, that's why, yes, it's learning those two's maybe absolute apex as a duo, which in my head, perfect compliments in theory. Like, great defensive big who can roll and catch and is a growing shooter. I think Aliyah would still like to be a better shooter with an awesome passer, elite shooter type at the one. I sold both of them short with those very short descriptions, but you know what I'm saying? They're excellent.
Generational talents doing those things.
Yes.
And really, that's sort of the biggest thing for me is you could go back and say, boy, there were early struggles. And Aliyah Boston, despite the early struggles, still put up another monster year, the kind of year that we have not seen from very many centers in year 2 after she did things in year 1 that we've seen almost no rookie centers ever do. I ran the numbers after 11 games, after those first hard 11 games for Caitlin Clark, and Caitlin Clark's first 11 on a rate status basis compared favorably to Diana Taurasi's full rookie year and Sue Bird's full rookie year. And then she got massively better after that. So it's almost impossible for me. I can't even think of what a ceiling is that makes sense for it. But to your point, Brittany Griner and Diana Taurasi won a championship in 2014. And then Jim Pittman really struggled to put together a team around them that made sense. And they didn't win another championship after 2014. So you can argue how great they both are. And certainly anyone would who saw them play, who got the chance to cover them. This is a hard league to win. And figuring out exactly what that combination looks like. It's going to be fascinating to see. Well, Tony, you seem to know a little bit about this team. You planning to continue to cover them moving forward?
Yes. The newness is, of course, internal and exciting for them. It's also exciting for me. This is by far the best Fever team I'll have covered. There's a chance that they win more games combined than I saw for like 3 or 4 seasons in a row this year. So that will be fun for me.
Well, your perspective is always appreciated, Tony. You do incredible work. Again, make sure you check out everything that Tony does for us at the Next. Make sure you check him out, Locked On Pacers. Where can people find you on social?
Yes, Tony R. East is the best place for that.
Very good. On all your social media channels. Until next time, I am Howard Megdal, host of Locked On Women's Basketball, thanking you for making us your first listen. We will be with you tomorrow, as we are 6 days a week. Until then, have a wonderful Wednesday.
You are Locked On Women's Basketball, your daily podcast on women's basketball. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.